The disappearance of flight MH370. 2,309 people board a plane. Families say goodbye. Passengers buckle their seatbelts. Pilots prepare for what should have been an ordinary overnight flight, and then, the airplane vanishes. No distress call. No explosion caught on camera. No confirmed wreckage for years. Just silence. A modern Boeing 777, one of the safest aircraft ever built, disappeared from the face of the Earth. Even more terrifying, investigators believe the plane continued flying for hours after contact was lost, meaning someone was still in control. To this day, nobody knows exactly what happened aboard Malaysia Airlines flight MH370. Was it pilot suicide? A hijacking? Mechanical failure? A fire? Or something even darker hidden beneath layers of classified information and unanswered questions? This is not just one of aviation's greatest mysteries. It's one of the greatest mysteries in human history. And tonight, we're going deep into the chilling disappearance of MH370. Scene 1. The flight that should have been normal. Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 was scheduled to fly from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia to Beijing, China. A routine international flight. Departure time 12:41 a.m. Arrival around 6:30 a.m. Nothing unusual. The aircraft itself was a Boeing 777-200ER, a long-range aircraft known for its reliability and advanced systems. Pilots trusted it. Airlines trusted it. Passengers trusted it. On board were 227 passengers and 12 crew members. Among them were tourists, business people, students, and entire families. Some were asleep before takeoff. Some watched movies. Some sent final text messages. None of them knew they were boarding a plane that would become one of the biggest unsolved mysteries ever. The captain of the flight was 53-year-old Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, highly experienced, respected, calm. He had more than 18,000 hours of flying experience. The co-pilot, Farik Abdul Hamid, was only 27 years old and still building his career. Everything appeared normal. The plane took off smoothly. Air traffic control monitored it as it climbed to cruising altitude. Passengers likely settled into the long overnight flight. Cabin lights dimmed. Meals were served. The world moved on, completely unaware that history was about to change. As the aircraft approached Vietnamese airspace, air traffic control instructed MH370 to contact the next control center. The response from the cockpit was calm, normal, routine. Captain Zahari's voice came over the radio. "Good night, Malaysian 370. Those would become the last known words ever heard from the plane. Less than 2 minutes later, MH370 disappeared from civilian radar. Gone. Just like that. No distress signal. No emergency beacon. No mayday call. Nothing. At first, air traffic controllers assumed it was a technical communication problem. That happens sometimes. But minutes turned into hours, and the plane never checked in with Vietnamese controllers. That's when panic began. Something was very wrong. Scene 3. The strange turn. Military radar soon revealed something shocking. MH370 had not simply disappeared. It had turned. After vanishing from civilian radar, the aircraft made a dramatic deviation from its planned route. Instead of continuing north toward Beijing, the plane turned west, crossing back over Malaysia. This was no accidental drift. The maneuver appeared deliberate. Whoever controlled the aircraft knew what they were doing. Even stranger, investigators believe the plane's communication systems were manually disabled. The transponder, which allows civilian radar to identify aircraft, stopped transmitting. Then the aircraft's ACAR system, used to send maintenance data and communications, also went silent. Two critical systems, disabled separately, within minutes. That raised terrifying questions. Did someone inside the cockpit intentionally make the plane disappear? Scene 4. The search begins. As sunrise approached, governments across Asia launched one of the largest search operations in history. Ships, military aircraft, satellites. Everyone searched the South China Sea because that was where the plane was expected to be. But there was one massive problem. MH370 wasn't there. Days passed. Nothing. No wreckage. No oil slick. No bodies. How could a massive Boeing 777 disappear without leaving evidence? Then investigators uncovered another bombshell. Satellite data from a company called Inmarsat showed the aircraft had continued communicating with satellites for hours after disappearing, not through voice messages, not through normal communication, but through automated electronic handshakes, tiny digital pings, like a ghost plane whispering, "I'm still here." Scene 5. The Seventh Arc. By analyzing those satellite pings, investigators created two possible flight paths, one north, one south. The northern route would have taken the aircraft towards Central Asia. The southern route led into the vast emptiness of the southern Indian Ocean. Eventually, experts concluded the southern route was most likely, and that realization terrified everyone, because the southern Indian Ocean is one of the most remote places on Earth. Violent storms, massive waves, thousands of miles from civilization. If MH370 went down there, finding it would be nearly impossible. Investigators identified a possible crash corridor known as the Seventh Arc. Somewhere along that invisible line, MH370 likely ran out of fuel and plunged into the ocean. But nobody knew exactly where. Scene 6. Theories begin to explode online. As the mystery deepened, theories exploded across the internet. Some believed the plane was hijacked. Others suspected terrorism. Some thought the aircraft had been secretly shot down by a military force. And then came the conspiracy theories. Alien abductions, secret military experiments, hidden landings on remote islands. People became obsessed because humans hate mysteries without answers, and MH370 offered almost nothing but mysteries. But among all the speculation, one theory stood above the rest: pilot suicide. Scene 7. The pilot suicide theory. Investigators began closely examining Captain Zaharia Ahmad Shah. At first, nothing alarming appeared. He was experienced, professional, well-liked. But as investigators dug deeper, strange details emerged. Inside his home was a sophisticated flight simulator. Investigators reportedly found deleted flight paths that resembled part of MH370's suspected route into the southern Indian Ocean. That discovery shocked the world. Was it evidence? Or coincidence? Friends and family insisted Zahari was not suicidal, but some investigators believed the evidence pointed toward a deliberate act. The theory suggested this: after reaching cruising altitude, the captain may have locked the co-pilot out of the cockpit. He then disabled communications, turned the aircraft away from populated airspace, and flew south until the plane ran out of fuel. If true, it would mean the passengers and crew were trapped aboard a doomed aircraft for hours, possibly unconscious due to oxygen deprivation, drifting silently across the darkness of the Indian Ocean. It's a horrifying possibility, but it's still only a theory, because there is no definitive proof. Before we continue, if you're fascinated by true mysteries, aviation disasters, and unexplained events from around the world, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications, because we dive deep into the stories that still keep investigators awake at night. And trust me, this mystery gets even stranger. Scene 8. The Ghost Flight Theory. One chilling possibility is known as the ghost flight scenario. This theory suggests a catastrophic depressurization event may have incapacitated everyone on board, including the pilots. Without oxygen, humans lose consciousness within minutes at high altitude. The aircraft, however, could continue flying on autopilot for hours. This has happened before in aviation history. Planes have flown silently until fuel exhaustion. Investigators considered whether a fire or mechanical failure triggered such an event aboard MH370. But there were problems with this theory. The deliberate turns, the disabled systems, the timing. Too many actions appeared intentional. Still, no theory fully explains every piece of evidence. And that's what makes MH370 so disturbing. Every explanation leaves unanswered questions. Scene 9. The Search of the Ocean Floor. The search for MH370 became the most expensive aviation search operation in history. Ships scanned enormous sections of the ocean floor using advanced sonar technology. Underwater drones explored deep trenches. Experts mapped areas humans had never properly examined before. The ocean there is brutal. Some areas plunge more than 6,000 meters deep. That's nearly 4 miles underwater. Search crews battled storms, isolation, and crushing uncertainty. Month after month, nothing. No fuselage, no black boxes, no final answers. In January 2017, after searching more than 120,000 square kilometers of ocean, the official search was suspended. Imagine that, a massive passenger jet carrying 239 people still missing. In the modern age of satellites, GPS, and global surveillance, it felt impossible, yet it happened. Scene 10, the first pieces of wreckage. Then in July 2015, more than a year after MH370 vanished, a piece of aircraft debris washed ashore on Reunion Island near Africa. Investigators identified it as a flaperon from MH370. Finally, proof the plane had crashed in the Indian Ocean. Over time, additional debris pieces were discovered along coastlines in Africa and nearby islands. Some were confirmed to belong to MH370. Others were likely linked. Ocean current experts concluded the drift patterns matched a southern Indian Ocean crash. But the debris raised even more questions. Why was there so little wreckage? Where exactly was the main crash site? And why hadn't the black boxes been found? Those flight recorders could contain the final moments of the aircraft, the final conversations, the final alarms, the final truth. But somewhere beneath miles of ocean, they remain lost. Scene 11. The families left behind. Behind every aviation disaster are human lives. And for the families of MH370 victims, the pain never truly ended. Many spent years hoping their loved ones might still somehow be alive. Some refused to believe the plane had crashed. Others demanded governments reveal hidden truths. There were protests, lawsuits, accusations of cover-ups. Families wanted answers. And honestly, who could blame them? Imagine losing someone without a body, without a grave, without certainty. Just endless unanswered questions. For many relatives, the worst part wasn't death. It was uncertainty, the inability to say goodbye. Scene 12. The conspiracy theories. Because the mystery remains unsolved, conspiracy theories still thrive today. Some claim MH370 was secretly hijacked by intelligence agencies. Others believe it landed on a hidden military base. One viral theory claimed the passengers were kidnapped because of secret technological patents. Another suggested the plane was accidentally shot down during military exercises. Some theories became so wild they involved time travel and extraterrestrials. But investigators caution against sensationalism. Why? Because conspiracy theories often grow strongest where information is incomplete, and MH370 left enormous gaps. Still, some experts argue governments may know more than they've publicly admitted. Military radar tracked the aircraft for part of its journey. Questions remain about response times and data transparency. Even after years of investigation, not all raw data has been fully released publicly. That keeps suspicion alive. And until the wreckage is fully found, the speculation will never truly stop. Scene 13. The final moments. Well, so what likely happened during the final moments of MH370? Most investigators believe the aircraft eventually exhausted its fuel over the southern Indian Ocean. After that, the plane probably descended rapidly into the sea. But there's disagreement about how. Some experts believe the aircraft spiraled uncontrollably. Others argue someone may have still been conscious and attempted a controlled ditching. If the plane hit the ocean at high speed, the impact would have shattered much of the aircraft. If it landed relatively flat, some debris patterns might make more sense. But again, without the main wreckage and black boxes, nobody can say for certain. And that uncertainty haunts aviation experts to this day. Scene 14. The impact on aviation. MH370 changed aviation forever. Before 2014, many people assumed modern aircraft could never truly disappear. MH370 proved otherwise. After the incident, global aviation organizations pushed for improved aircraft tracking systems. Airlines increased real-time monitoring. Satellite tracking technology became more advanced. The tragedy exposed dangerous blind spots in global aviation infrastructure. Because despite all our technology, there were still places on Earth where a plane could vanish. That realization shocked the world. Scene 15. Ocean Infinity. And the continuing search. Years after the official search ended, private companies continued looking for MH370. One of them was Ocean Infinity, a marine robotics company using advanced underwater technology. Their mission reignited hope. Could modern AI and autonomous underwater vehicles finally solve the mystery? Search teams revisited new possible crash zones based on updated drift analysis and satellite modeling. But once again, no confirmed wreckage field was found. Still, many experts believe MH370 will eventually be discovered. Not because of luck, but because technology keeps improving. The ocean may hide secrets, but not forever. Scene 16. Why MH370 captivates the world. Why are people still obsessed with MH370 after all these years? Because the disappearance attacks something deep inside us. Our belief that technology protects us. Our belief that every mystery can be solved. Our belief that humans are always in control. MH370 shattered those assumptions. In one night, an aircraft carrying 239 souls vanished into darkness. And despite satellites, governments, military systems, and billions of dollars, humanity still cannot fully explain what happened. That's terrifying. But it's also deeply human, because throughout history, unsolved mysteries have haunted civilization, and MH370 became the modern world's version of that fear. A reminder that even in the age of smartphones and satellites, the unknown still exists. What do you think happened to MH370? Was it pilot suicide? A catastrophic failure? A hijacking? Or something we still haven't considered? Comment your theory below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into one of history's greatest mysteries, hit subscribe and turn on notifications for more documentaries on unexplained disappearances, disasters, and true events that changed the world forever. Because sometimes, the scariest mysteries are the ones that are real. 239 people boarded flight MH370, but the world never saw them again. And somewhere beneath the endless darkness of the Indian Ocean, the final answers may still be waiting.